Buenas tardes. La Secretaría de Economía y el Instituto Nacional del Emprendedor les dan la más cordial bienvenida a la Semana del Emprendedor, el lugar donde crecen tus ideas. Contamos con la presencia del licenciado Enrique Jacob, presidente del Instituto Nacional del Emprendedor. Antes de comenzar, vamos a ver este video.
Este es el momento de México. Es tiempo de actuar y de mover a nuestro país. Tenemos el potencial para lograrlo. México cuenta con la mayor de las riquezas, el espíritu y energía de los mexicanos. Mujeres y hombres que imaginan, emprenden, innovan, crean y transforman, porque creen en un México próspero. La fuerza productiva se concentra en las pequeñas empresas, que representan 9 de cada 10 unidades económicas, crean 7 de cada 10 empleos y contribuyen con la tercera parte de la generación de riqueza del país. México es también un país de jóvenes, donde más del 62% de su población tiene menos de 34 años. Por ello, la energía de nuestros emprendedores es la fuerza que mueve a México. Son muchos los mexicanos que ponen en alto a nuestro país, que todos los días se esfuerzan por triunfar. Queremos que estas historias las repitan más mexicanos como tú. De lo que se trata es de que todos los mexicanos tengamos las mismas oportunidades para construir nuestras propias historias de éxito. Por eso el gobierno de la República se fijó la meta de impulsar reformas históricas, cuya finalidad es poner a los tiempos del mundo a las instituciones del Estado. Se trata de nivelar el entorno para que los emprendedores mexicanos estén a la altura de los mejores del mundo, con energías sustentables a costos competitivos, con mayor cobertura y acceso a los avances tecnológicos, con jóvenes mejor preparados, con financiamiento accesible y en mejores condiciones que apalanque el desarrollo, con facilidades fiscales para abrir y hacer crecer negocios en la formalidad. A partir de las reformas será más fácil emprender e innovar, crear una empresa o hacer crecer y consolidar las que ya existen. Porque queremos que todo mexicano que tenga una idea emprendedora pueda materializarla. Que aquellos que al emprender deciden trascender las fronteras de lo posible transformen su entorno. Que los empresarios cuenten con el respaldo financiero que les permita consolidarse y crecer. Que las pequeñas empresas sean más productivas y con ello, los empresarios y sus familias tengan mayores ingresos y satisfactores. Que las empresas que han decidido exportar, ya sea directa o a través de proveer insumos a grandes empresas globales, puedan llevarlo a cabo. Para ello, la Red de Apoyo al Emprendedor, coordinada por el Instituto Nacional del Emprendedor, te acerca los apoyos que necesitas y requieres para alcanzar tu potencial. La Red, como un gran movimiento de suma de voluntades y compromisos de distintos aliados públicos y privados, se compromete con el talento emprendedor de los mexicanos. Gracias a este esfuerzo, casi 334,000 emprendedores beneficiados. Más de 410,000 pequeñas empresas beneficiadas. Se favoreció la creación de casi 4,800 pequeñas empresas. ¿Qué es lo que se quiere lograr? Que México se ubique entre los 10 mejores países para emprender. El lugar de América Latina con más oportunidades para el desarrollo de las mujeres emprendedoras y empresarias. Donde la innovación se convierta en un estilo de trabajo de nuestros emprendedores y empresarios. donde para nuestros jóvenes la primera opción profesional sea emprender en la formalidad. Tú eres el motor que transformará a México. En la historia que los mexicanos estamos escribiendo, tú eres parte fundamental. La suma del éxito de muchos mexicanos como tú representa el éxito de nuestro país. Eres parte de la generación de mexicanos que está comprometida a mover a México. ¡Bienvenido!
En esta tarde damos inicio a la conferencia magistral titulada La creación de una era de la abundancia, impartida por Peter Diamandis. El doctor Peter Diamandis es un pionero internacional en los ámbitos de la innovación, las competencias de incentivos y espacios comerciales, presidente y CEO de la Fundación X-Prize, mejor conocido por sus 10 millones generados por vuelos privados espaciales. Es también el cofundador y vicepresidente de Human Longevity Inc., cofundador y presidente ejecutivo de Singularity University. En el campo del espacio comercial, Diamandis es cofundador y copresidente del Planetary Resources, compañía de diseño de naves espaciales para permitir la detección y la minería de asteroides. También es autor de La abundancia, el futuro es mejor de lo que piensa. Demos la bienvenida a Peter Diamandis.
I'll leave this with you. Good afternoon, everybody. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. Today, I want to talk about how entrepreneurs are creating a world of abundance. How today, the world's biggest problems are the world's biggest business opportunities. That the best way to become a billionaire is to help a billion people. So I'm someone who believes that over the next 10, 20, 30 years at the most, we're going to be able to meet the needs of every man, woman, and child on this planet. That we truly are creating a world of abundance. The challenge in thinking this way is that as we evolved as humans on the savannas of Africa hundreds of thousands and millions of years ago, back then the world was local and linear. Everything that affected you back then was within a day's walk. If something happened on the other side of the planet, you knew nothing about it. And life was linear. The life of your great-grandparents, your parents, you, your kids, their kids, nothing changed. But today, the world is anything but that. Today, the world is global and exponential. Something happens in China or India, you know about it here in Mexico, seconds later. Your computers know about it microseconds later. Things are not changing century to century or decade to decade. They are changing year to year. And if I were going to graph this is what it looks like. You see, that red line down there is us. It's our politicians, it's our teachers, it's our investors, it's our employees, it's all of us, it's us humans. We don't change very much over time. We haven't had a hardware or a software upgrade in 50,000 years. That yellow line is the technology that you're creating, that you're using. It's computers, networks, artificial intelligence, robotics, and this technology is exploding onto the scene. And the difference between us humans as linear thinkers and this world of exponential technology is either disruptive stress or disruptive opportunity, depending on your point of view. So, if you're the CEO of a large public company, and some kid in a garage here in Mexico City comes up with this new technology that disrupts your products or service, it's disruptive stress. If you're the kid in the garage who comes up with a new idea, it's disruptive opportunity. So, to share an example, one that is near to my heart, I grew up where Kodak was the mainstay of all photography. And in 1996, Kodak was a $28 billion company. It had 140,000 employees. It was the brand for photography. And then In 2012, it files for bankruptcy. Put out of business by digital photography. And what most people don't know was that Kodak, in 1976, invented the first digital camera. The challenge was that this digital camera was the size of a small toaster. It took just 36 black and white images at 0.01 megapixels. And when the inventor of the digital camera brought this into the boardroom of Kodak, and he said, "Here it is, the future of Kodak, this new technology we've invented." You know, the board member, the CEO said, "What are you kidding me? This is a toy for kids. We're Kodak. We make beautiful, high-resolution images." What they didn't understand was that digital photography, as with all things digital, grows on this exponential growth curve. And 30 years later, that this technology would put them out of business. And in that same year that they declared bankruptcy, another company called Instagram, that was the digital version of today, was acquired by Facebook for $1 billion. But they had 13 employees. And that difference between a linear thinking company like Kodak and a set of entrepreneurs like the founders of Instagram is the story I'm here to tell you about. You see, we're living in a world today where a small group of passionate entrepreneurs can create $1 billion company literally overnight. I call this the new Kodak moment, when an exponential company puts a linear thinking company out of business. So here are a few statistics. In the next 10 years, it's predicted that 40% of today's Fortune 500 companies will no longer exist. That they'll be put out of business by companies you have not heard of yet. Put a different way, on the US stock exchange, the S&P 500, Standard & Poor's 500, the average lifetime of a company started in the 1920s. If you started a company back then, you had a 67-year run rate because the rate of change was slow. Today, if you start a company, you have 15 years on the average before someone puts you out of business. So what does this feel like for entrepreneurs? The rate at which we're going from "I've got an idea" to "I run $1 billion company" is getting faster and faster and faster. And we all know the slew of startups: YouTube, Instagram, Dropbox, Uber, Oculus VR, Airbnb, WhatsApp, that have gone from "I've got an idea" to "Oh my God, I'm running $1 billion company" faster than ever before. So 6 years ago, I partnered with an amazing man, Ray Kurzweil, one of the top thinkers in the field of artificial intelligence, to start a new university called Singularity University. I'm proud that I have a number of our alumni sitting right here, and we have a large number of alumni for Singularity University here in Mexico and in Mexico City. And it's a different type of university. It's a university that is backed by NASA, by Google, by 3D Systems, Autodesk, Cisco, Genentech, that focuses only on exponential technologies. It focuses on those technologies that are doubling in power year on year on year. And we run a number of programs. We run a program for our graduate students. We have 80 graduate students from 30 countries around the world, many each year from Mexico, and we teach them over 10 weeks to look at what are the world's biggest problems and how do you create a company to solve that problem. With a mission we call 10 to the 9th plus, meaning we want you to start a company that can positively impact the lives of 1 billion people in 10 years. Because that's how you get scale, because that's what an entrepreneur can do today. An entrepreneur can build a company that can impact the lives of 1 billion people. And if you can do that, why wouldn't you want to? We also run executive programs, and we run a program for Fortune 200 CEOs and executive teams. The curriculum at Singularity University is unlike anything that you'll see anyplace else. We teach about exponential technologies, computers, networks, AI, robotics, 3D printing, synthetic biology, digital medicine. And we also teach about how to use this hyper-connected world in crowdfunding, incentive competitions, crowdsourcing. And as an organization, our mission is to spread this. And we run events around the world. I'm very pleased that Vivian Lan, our ambassador for Singularity University here in Mexico, is going to be creating a Singularity Summit in the first quarter of 2015 to really bring this educational experience here to Mexico City in an impactful fashion. So please follow up with Vivian if you're interested in that. But let me give you a short version of what you're going to be experiencing at the Singularity Summit, and a short version of, as an entrepreneur, what you have as the tools to change the world. First of all, I said in the beginning that we are not exponential thinkers. We grew up in a world that was local and linear. So what does exponential growth feel like? If I were to take 30 linear steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth, at 30 steps, I'm 30 meters away. And all of you can say, I'm going to be there in 5 meters, 5 steps, there in 10 steps, there in 30 steps. But if I were to say to you where you're going to be in 30 exponential steps, and an exponential is a simple doubling, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, where are you going to be in 30 doublings? Very few of us, unless you have it memorized, know that you're going to be 1 billion meters away. Put differently, you will have gone around the planet 26 times. And that disconnect between I'll be there in 30 steps or have orbited Earth 26 times in 30 exponential steps is what put Kodak out of business. So when I teach this to audiences around the world and to Fortune 200 companies, I talk about what I call the 6 Ds of exponentials. Let me explain what they mean. The first is that anything that becomes digitized, digitization is ones and zeros, and everything is becoming digital. When it starts becoming digital, it enters a period of deceptive growth, where the growth is very slow. But then it becomes disruptive. And then when it becomes disruptive, it dematerializes, demonetizes, and democratizes. Let me explain what that means. So when exponential technology becomes disruptive, the first thing it does is to dematerialize technologies. So here's the example. 30 years later, all of these things fit in my pocket, right? I no longer have a GPS. My GPS is become dematerialized on my phone. My record collection, my book collection, my high-definition video or still photography, all of these devices are no longer physical things. They're now digital applications on your phone. And they've become dematerialized. So when I'm talking to CEOs, I say, which of your products or services are going to become dematerialized to become apps? And when they become dematerialized, they also become free. And they demonetize. So iTunes took the money out of the record stores. Skype destroyed long distance. Amazon, the bookstores, Google research libraries, eBay, the local stores, and Craigslist, at least in the United States, took the money out of the newspapers, out of the classified ads, and put it back in the consumers' pockets. Uber, Airbnb, all of these things are demonetizing the cost of products and services. Great for the public, not so great for the companies that own those products or services. But this is just beginning. Because once it becomes dematerialized and demonetized, it becomes democratized, meaning it becomes available everyone, everywhere, for free. So in Africa, by the end of next year, by the end of 2016, I should say, there will be 1 billion handsets. Just think about the fact that this Maasai warrior on a smartphone has better mobile communications than the president of the US, the president of Mexico had just 20 years ago. And if they're on Google, they have access to more knowledge and information than the president had 15 years ago. all of this is being made possible by this curve. This curve is the rate at which computers are getting faster and faster. So what we're seeing here on the bottom is 110 years of history. And on the left-hand axis is the computer speed. How many cycles per second $1,000 of investment could buy you. And what you see on this is over the last 110 years, the rate at which our computers have gotten faster has been exponentially growing. And if I project that going forward for the next 110 years, this is what you get. The computer running this presentation is using a Intel processor from about 2010, and it's calculating at 100 billion calculations in 1 second. More computational power than took us to the moon in the 60s, more than we had in the 70s. 9 years from now, in 2023, the average $1,000 computer that you go to the store and purchase here is going to be calculating at 10 to the 16th cycles per second, which is just a number. But that's the rate at which your brain and my brain calculates. So what happens 9 years from now when $1,000 buys you the computational power of a human mind? Because it doesn't stop there, right? 25 years later, now $1,000 buys you the computational power of the entire human race. Now your kid's homework gets really easy. So these computers that are getting faster and faster, this what's called Moore's Law, which is likely to continue to the future, is driving a whole set of technologies. Technologies like infinite computing, sensors and networks, robotics, 3D printing, synthetic biology, digital medicine, nanomaterials, and artificial intelligence. And these are the technologies that used to only be available for the largest companies and the governments. Today, they're available for entrepreneurs anywhere on the planet who's online. These are the tools that entrepreneurs here in Mexico need to begin accessing. These are the tools that we teach our alumni at Singularity University, because these are the tools that allow you to do and attack the world's biggest problems and create companies and products and services that can touch the lives of 1 billion people in a positive way. Let me talk about a few of these. I'm going to try and give you in just, 15 minutes what we normally teach at Singularity University in 10 weeks. So you'll excuse me if I go quickly. Let's start with artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is the ability of a computer to understand what you're asking, to understand it and to be able to give you a great answer. And you may know artificial intelligence as Siri on your iPhone, but it's much more than that. And so what I'm going to show you is a video from 2 years ago, and a lot of progress has been made in 2 years, where IBM built a computer called Watson, named after the founder of IBM. And to demonstrate how incredible Watson is, they challenged the all 2-time Jeopardy champions. And I don't know if, is Jeopardy shown here? You have a Mexican version of Jeopardy, okay. So in this question, you're going to see the guy who won the most money and the guy who won the most number of games compete against this computer to answer questions. And then let's talk about it afterwards.
Ken, you're in the first position. Please make a selection.
I've never said this on TV. Chicks dig me for 200.
A little louder, please.
Kathleen Kenyon's excavation of this city, mentioned in Joshua, showed the walls had been repaired 17 times. Watson.
What is Jericho?
Correct.
400, same category.
This mystery author and her archaeologist hubby dug in hopes of finding the lost Syrian city of Urkesh. Watson.
Who is Agatha Christie?
Correct. Watson.
Who is Mary Leakey?
You're right. Watson.
What is Crete?
Yes.
Let's finish Chicks Dig Me.
Edmel?
So what was Watson? Watson was a computer not connected to the internet, a fraction the size of the stage. You can see a photograph of it here, that was able to read a million books per second. And what has happened since this 2 years ago is that IBM has put Watson now onto the cloud and is making it accessible to entrepreneurs. Imagine the world in which anyone with a cell phone can call up Watson and ask any question. Where is Watson going? The first place it's going is medicine. So that they're downloading into Watson all the medical textbooks, all the journals, all of the research, so that Watson will become your physician in the future, and your teacher, and your sales consultant, and your fashion advisor, and your cook, and whatever you want. Let's talk about sensors. I mentioned Kodak and the first digital camera ever. This is Steven Sesson, who invented the digital camera in 1976 in a Kodak lab. And this was the camera. You know, about almost 4 pounds, $10,000, and could take 0.01 megapixel images. Today, the average camera is 1,000 times lighter, 1,000 times higher resolution, 1,000 times cheaper. But even though it's 1 billion times better over the last 30 years, this is where it is today. The amazing thing about exponential technologies are they continue. And it's not going to stop here. This is just, where it is today. I can't stress that enough. Because 10, 20, 30 years from now, the digital cameras that you have may be in your clothing, they may be in the fabric, they may be in little autonomous robots flying around capturing everything. This is the first rocket navigation system that was used to get us to the moon. About 50 pounds, millions of dollars, could tell you your velocity, your orientation, and your acceleration. This is the technology that allowed us to open up the space frontier. Again, 50 pounds, millions of dollars. Today, it's a chip for under $1 in your phone. In the future, it's going to be molecular machinery that's free, effectively, in the fabric of your clothing once again. This is the world's first GPS. $120,000, 53 pounds. Imagine putting this on the dash of your car. Today, it's a chip, $5. Again, I want to impress upon you that this is where it is today. This amazing curve of progress is going to continue and continue and continue. And as it does, these technologies become cheaper, they become more available, they become, in the fabric of the environment. They're built into everything we're going to buy and own. So that's sensors. And we're heading into a world of 1 trillion sensors. My friends at Cisco talk about the Internet of Everything. We're going to be able to know anything we want, anytime we want, because there'll be 1 trillion sensors in the world measuring everything. Let's talk about robots. Anybody know what this is a photograph of? This is thank you from our SU alum, it's a Tesla plant. It's where they built Teslas, which are, in the US, rated the safest vehicle ever designed. And I don't know if you can see the human in this Tesla plant. There's one human here. And so we're entering a world where robots are going to transform how we build, how we do our work, how we do everything. So let me give you a little bit of a feeling of where robots are coming, because we haven't seen anything yet. What we've seen on science fiction, at least what I believe, the positive, the good robots. I don't believe in the sort of the dystopian negative robots. We can talk about that later. This is a robot from Honda. You get the idea. Something amazing happened last year, and something that very few people talk about. And it's the idea and the notion that Google, a search company, bought 8 robot companies. that I know of. They may well have bought many more. What is Google doing buying robotics companies? Well, they also happen to be building the most advanced AI systems on the planet. Let me show you just one of the robotic companies that Google has recently purchased. It's called Boston Dynamics. A friend of mine runs it, and they're making extraordinary robots. So this is a robot that's been designed and built to go into dangerous environments, like a nuclear reactor or a war zone, or whatever is needed to go and help. But it's kind of spooky. You see robots that look like animals. Look at the reflex as this man kicks the robot. How lifelike it looks. The last thing I want to do is go for a walk through the woods and see this guy coming at me. So, this is a different kind of robot. This is Google's autonomous car. In the front seat's Larry Page, in the back seat's Sergey Brin, who runs Google X and runs this, Eric Schmidt standing behind it. And in addition to Google that started this revolution, every major car company in the world has announced plans for autonomous vehicles. And we will probably see on our streets within the next 6 to 10 years fully autonomous vehicles that are going to change every aspect of our lives. And one of the questions for entrepreneurs are you thinking about this? For the government leaders, are you planning for this? What does it mean? It means if you have autonomous cars, you don't have parking garages. You don't have driveways. Your cars don't park. They drop you off and they go and do something useful. You can put 8 times more autonomous cars on the road than regular cars because they're so efficient in how they drive. So let's take a look. I've driven in the Google car a number of times. Many of you have not. So let me show you what it looks like inside this car, not during a normal drive, but while this car was driving a slalom course.
Oh my God. Oh dear Lord.
Oh my God, this is so
awesome. Oh my God.
So what is that car seeing? That car is seeing everything. On the roof of that car is a device called a LiDAR, a laser imaging radar, with 64 eye-safe lasers whizzing around, generating 750 megabytes per second of data. This image is what the computer of the car is seeing. It's seeing everything. As that car is going down the street, it's seeing a dog cross the street. It's seeing a person getting pickpocketed. You'll never have an accident again and not know exactly who caused it. It's going to transform how we think about our cities, because 1 million cars or 5 million cars or 10 million cars driving down the road will image everything. The idea of privacy is going away very, very quickly. And so is the idea of owning cars. So I have 2 3-year-old boys, and by the time they reached 18, they're probably not going to drive. They're going to have an autonomous car. And when you have autonomous cars, you don't need to buy a car. You simply rent a car whenever you need it. Uber right now is the closest thing to that. But eventually, I need a car right now. Great, you get a car. I need a Ferrari for the weekend to impress my date. I get a Ferrari. I need an SUV to pick up my in-laws. I get an SUV. So in addition to those cars seeing everything on the road, what's also happening right now is that we have a whole constellation of private satellites being launched. 3 are in orbit right now, 2 more are going, and these constellations are going to be able to image everything on the ground all the time. You want to know what your competition is doing? You can watch their trucks deliver the raw material to their factories, and you can watch the final products going to the stores, and you can count how many cars are in the supermarkets, in the parking lots of your competitors. You're going to have perfect knowledge, and besides these satellite imaging systems, you're going to have armies of drones. We haven't seen anything yet for the future of drones. Fully autonomous, long endurance, getting smaller and smaller and smaller. But besides those drones, eventually whatever becomes Google Glass, imaging anything everywhere. So in the future, we're going to be able to know anything we want, anytime we want. And the entrepreneurial opportunities of that are extraordinary. The next technology I want to talk about is the field of 3D printing. I'm very proud to be on the board of the leading company there called 3D Systems. And what 3D printing is the ability to manufacture anything. So if you wanted to manufacture a wrench, if you forgot your wrench one day, you can have your friend scan it, upload it into a computer file, and then a 3D printer prints layer by layer by layer, and you see it printing right here. And at the end, in 200 different materials, plastic, metal, glass, rubber, ceramics, titanium, you have a working wrench. So what can you 3D print? This is a polygon within a polygon within a polygon, and when you 3D print something, you have very complexity. Complexity comes for free. These are titanium turbine blades from jet engines that were 3D printed. Last year in China, a company 3D printed 10 houses in 24 hours for under $5,000 each. This is a person who lost his right lower limb, scanned the left leg, flipped the image, and 3D printed a prosthetic composite. This is the future of 3D printing clothing. Imagine you have a dinner tonight, you have no idea what you want to wear, you go online, you download a file, you print it in your closet. And this is a company that 3D prints jewelry, but this jewelry comes out of the 3D printer working right away. How about food? One of the companies that we've started is ChefJet. It can 3D print in chocolates and cakes. Extraordinary. The final technology I'll mention here in this overview of the technologies empowering entrepreneurs is synthetic genomics, synthetic biology. This is my business partner, Craig Venter, who in 2001 sequenced the first human genome. It cost $100 million to sequence the genome back in 2001. Today, 13 years later, it went from $100 million to $1,000. 100,000-fold in price improvement. In 2010, he created the first synthetic life form. And in March of this year, I partnered with Craig Venter to create a new company called Human Longevity. We're now the largest genome sequencing facility on the planet, mixed with stem cells. Our mission is to extend the healthy human lifespan by 30 to 40 years. So what is it worth to you to have an extra, like 100 years old and you 60? That's our goal. So some critical insights. Number one is that the rate of innovation is exploding. The only constant is change, and the rate of change is increasing. Innovation can come from anywhere. We used to think about it coming from the labs of the government or the big companies. No. Innovation is coming from the entrepreneurs. And this nation is filled with entrepreneurs. Giving these tools that I've spoken about and making them accessible as people come online, as high bandwidth becomes available throughout the nation, where you have access to 3D printing and AI and all of these, infinite computing. We're going to see an explosion in the rate of innovation. One of the things that I tell government leaders, that I tell CEOs of the top companies around the world, is that if you're not disrupting yourself, someone else is. If you're not disrupting your own products or services, someone else is. So when Kodak should have taken the risk and exploded the digital photography business, they didn't. Someone else did and put them out of business. Competition no longer is a multinational overseas. Competition for the largest companies today is an entrepreneur in a garage a few kilometers from here. And if you're dependent on innovation only inside your company, you're dead. Let me explain that. In this hyper-connected world where billions of people are coming online with access to technologies that I've just shown you, if you're dependent on just the few thousand people in your company to help you innovate, there's no way you can compete. We're living in a world today where you have to crowdsource. You have to tap into the smartest people around the world to solve your problems. To tap into the entrepreneurs right here in Mexico City, in Mexico, and ask them to solve the problems of your big companies, of your government. So, let me share my story in the field of incentive competitions. You see, I grew up in the 60s passionate about space. In the 60s and early 70s, I dreamed as a small child of going to space. And my chances of becoming an astronaut were zero. And one day I read about this guy, Charles Lindbergh, that in 1927, he flew nonstop from New York to Paris. Why? Because someone put up a prize. Someone said, I will pay $25,000 to the first person who can fly from New York to Paris. I don't care if you've ever done anything before. I don't care where you grew up, where you went to school. You fly, you win. And that $25,000 drove 9 different teams around the world to spend $400,000 to win that competition. And I said, wow, if I could create a prize for private space flight, maybe that's how I get into space. My challenge, my problem was I wanted to go to space. So I came up with an idea. I said, I'm going to go out there and raise $10 million and offer it to the first team who could build a private spaceship that could carry 3 individuals up 100 kilometers, land safely, and within 2 weeks make the trip to space again. Amazingly, it worked. We had 26 teams around the world who spent $100 million trying to win this $10 million prize. And on the morning of October 4th, 2004, 10 years ago, this vehicle, Spaceship One, took off in the Mojave Desert, powered by laughing gas and tire rubber, very unusual fuels, and made it to 100 kilometers altitude for the second time within 2 weeks. And here's the winning moment. On the far left is the Ansari family who put up the $10 million. Next to them, myself. Next to me is Paul Allen, who funded the winning team, Burt Rutan, Brian Binney, the pilot, and then Richard Branson, who the week before the prize was won, came in and bought the rights to the winning technology to create Virgin Galactic. And now all of us, if you want, can fly to space. So this prize drove 10 billion media impressions around the world. And now the winning vehicle, Spaceship One, is hanging in the Smithsonian right above the Apollo 11 capsule and next to the Spirit of St. Louis. On the heels of that, I was very proud to be able to build an extraordinary board of trustees that drive the X Prize with the CEO of Google, Larry Page, Ratan Tata, James Cameron, Elon Musk, Ray Kurzweil. And today we focus on what are the world's biggest problems. And God knows Mexico has all of them, right? Healthcare, water, energy, education, all of these things. And the thing that gives me the greatest hope is that Mexico also has a culture and a drive for entrepreneurship, and the ability you have to give those entrepreneurs the tools that I spoke about is going to unleash a tsunami of innovation. Because while these huge problems are there, they also represent the world's biggest business opportunities. And that alignment is extraordinary. Let me give you an example. We've launched an X Prize to transform healthcare. 2.5 years ago, I stood on stage with the CEO of Qualcomm, Paul Jacobs, and we announced a $10 million Qualcomm Tricorder X Prize. Any of you who love Star Trek like I do know that in Star Trek, the tricorder is a device that Spock and Dr. McCoy used to diagnose someone, right? And so we have asked teams around the world to compete to build a handheld mobile device that's not for a doctor or for a nurse. It's for a mom or a dad at 2 o'clock in the morning when their kid is sick. And it's a device you can speak to because it's got Watson on the cloud. It's a device you can cough on. It's a device you can do a finger blood prick and can diagnose you better than a group of board-certified physicians. And so we announced this competition, and we had 330 teams around the world enter. We're down to the top, I think, 25 teams, so we'll have a winner in the next year. And just like Google, for the poorest person with a smartphone here in Mexico, is as good as Google for the CEO of Google, Larry Page, these devices will be the best healthcare that you can have, available for the poor and the richest the same. Where are we going next? The other big problem around the world is learning, is literacy. We're living on a planet of 1 billion illiterate people. 200 million of those are kids. And so we're getting ready to launch next month something called the Global Learning X Prize. And this is going to be for a piece of software that can operate on any tablet, any smartphone, that can take a child anywhere where there's no schools, no literate adults, and take them from illiteracy to reading, writing, and numeracy in 18 months. It's about uplifting humanity. I'll mention that one of the things that we've recently done, because we only launch a couple of X Prizes per year, is we've recently started a platform called HeroX, herox.com, that allows anyone to create challenges. Challenges for the local community, challenges for the university, challenges for the company, challenges for whatever. And I'm very proud that the very first challenge that we have launched is a challenge called the San Antonio MX Challenge, which is a San Antonio, Mexico partnership. And if you go to herox.com, you can look about it. Also, they have a booth here, 947-A. So it's about unleashing the power of entrepreneurship to solve your problems. So I'm going to close with the conversation on abundance, which is that we're heading from a world that used to be scarce to a world of abundance, because technology is the force that liberates resources. So I wrote this book 2 years ago. It was #1 on Amazon, #2 on New York Times. And I went talking to people about how we're living in this world of abundance, and the world is getting better and better and better. And people stopped me and said, wait, hold it, Peter. How can you say the world is getting so much better? I mean, honestly, haven't you heard about the economic crisis in Europe? And haven't you heard about the gun shootings here? And haven't you heard about the drugs over here? How can you say the world is getting better? And as I stopped and looked at this, the numbers are very clear. The numbers show that the world has gotten extraordinarily better over the last 100 years. And that everything we see as challenges are in fact getting less and less. So what was doing this? Why was everybody so pessimistic? And the realization was that we're living in a world today where the news media is a drug pusher. And the news media is delivering negative news on every device that we have every minute of the day. Our radio, our television, our newspapers, our internet, everything. In a world where you have cameras every place and the news media wants your attention, they're serving up every murder, every problem on the planet nonstop, delivered into your living room in high definition. So the question is that the way the world really is? And why is this going on? Well, it turns out that it's going on for one reason. As we were evolving as humans, on the savannas of Africa, hundreds of thousands and millions of years ago, if you missed a piece of good news, like some food over there, well, that's too bad. If you missed a piece of bad news, then your genes were out of the gene pool. You were dead. And so we evolved an ancient part of our temporal lobe called the amygdala. And the amygdala scans everything we see and everything we hear for negative news. And if it sees negative news, you pay 10 times more attention to negative news than positive news. Which is why all the positive news television networks fail. So the question is that the way the world really is? And if you look at the last 100 years, it clearly is not. Over the last 100 years, the cost of food has gotten 13 times cheaper. The cost of energy has gotten 20 times cheaper. The cost of transportation has gotten 100 times cheaper. The cost of communications, thousands of fold cheaper. This is the cover of The Economist magazine that shows us that we have taken more people out of extreme poverty in the last 30 years than ever before. We're heading towards a world without any extreme poverty. Steven Pinker at Harvard wrote this book called The Better Angels of Our Nature that demonstrates without any question that we are living during the most peaceful time ever in human history. Today, your chances of dying a violent death are 1/500th of what they used to be. But we forget this. So I open my book with a story of how technology is creating abundance and how it's changing our world. The guy on the left is Napoleon III. The guy on the right is the King of Siam. The year is 1840. And in this year, the King of Siam has come over for dinner, and Napoleon has feeding all of his troops with silver utensils. The King of Siam is fed with gold utensils. Napoleon is fed with gold utensils, and the King of Siam is fed with aluminum utensils. And in that year, aluminum was the most precious metal on the planet, worth more than gold and aluminum. The reason aluminum was worth more than gold was because all the aluminum on the planet was bound with oxygen and silicates to make this brown-like substance called bauxite. And it was so energy intensive to extract the aluminum from the bauxite, it was worth more than gold and platinum. Until a technology came along called electrolysis that made it so easy to extract the aluminum that we use it with a throwaway mentality. So the question is, what else do we think of as scarce that technology is making abundant? A friend of mine in Silicon Valley right now is manufacturing diamonds at $20 a carat. So for the ladies in the audience, when your husband comes or your boyfriend comes with a 100-carat ring, I'm sorry, it's not worth as much as it used to be. He hasn't announced it yet, but they will be at the end of this year. One of my companies, backed by a group of 12 billionaires, is a company called Planetary Resources. If you think access to platinum is scarce, or access to building materials is scarce, the Earth is a crumb in a supermarket filled with resources. Our goal is to go and prospect and mine near-Earth asteroids. And these asteroids that come close to the Earth on a regular basis, sometimes they hit the Earth, which is not a good thing, are worth trillions of dollars in fuels, in metals, in platinum group. It's a matter of a perspective shift. If we think about energy and energy scarcity, we live on a planet that is bathed in 5,000 times more energy than we consume as a species in a year. We have plenty of energy on Earth. It's just not in a useful form yet. But here's what we're seeing. The rate at which the cost of solar is dropping exponentially. At the same time that the production is exploding. I know the numbers for the United States that say that the U.S., at least to the predictions that Ray Kurzweil and my friend Elon Musk will talk about, will be meeting at least 50% of its energy needs from solar within 20 years. And God knows Mexico is a sunnier country than the United States is. If you have abundant energy, you have abundant water. Half of the disease burden on Earth is due to unclean drinking water. But technologies like Dean Kamen's Slingshot, which is a device that has two hoses. One hose you stick into anything wet, the Atlantic Ocean, the latrine, arsenic-infected water. Out the other hose comes water so pure it meets the medical standards for injectable water. And what's incredible is that Muhtar Kent, the CEO of Coca-Cola, is now beginning to deploy these devices in villages around the world. This Maasai warrior on a cell phone, as I mentioned, has better comm than the president did 20, 25 years ago. And if they're on Google, they have access to more knowledge and information than the president did 15 years ago. We talked about abundance of health with the Qualcomm tricorder. And we talked about, providing literacy to the world. I'll end on this slide, which is the following. This is the world's population. We just crossed the 7 billion mark. This is internet penetration. In 2010, we had just shy of 2 billion people connected. By 2020, 6 years from now, we're going to be adding another 3 to 5 billion people online. If projects like Google's Loon and other technologies come on, it will be 5 billion. If not, it will be just 3 billion additional new minds. So what happens when 3 billion new minds get connected online? What happens when every single person in Mexico is online? I believe that we're going to see an amazing explosion of entrepreneurship. What are these 3 billion new minds going to buy? What are they going to discover? What are they going to create? What are they going to invent? They represent tens of trillions of dollars flowing into the global economy that have not been discussed yet. For me, they represent the greatest era of innovation. I think that we're at less than 1% of the innovation we're going to see over the next 20 years. It's just beginning. And for entrepreneurs here in Mexico, it is the best time ever to be alive. I'll just say, if anybody wants a copy of this presentation, if you text your first name and email to that number, my system will automatically send you a PDF of the presentation. But it's truly an honor to be here. To the entrepreneurs in the audience, my message is that the world's biggest problems are the world's biggest business opportunities. The best way to become a billionaire is to help 1 billion people. Today, the tools that you have in your hands are the tools that only the governments and the largest corporations had before. It's time for you to make your greatest dreams come true, because that's the world we're living in. An honor, a pleasure. I hope to see you all at Singularity University or at the Singularity Summit, where I'll be back again in the first quarter next year. A pleasure to be here. Thank you all.
Agradecemos a Peter Diamandis por impartir la conferencia La creación de una era de la abundancia en la Semana Nacional del Emprendedor. Thank you, Peter.